All right, here we go. Here we go again. Part three. We're back again for part three of Are You Relationship Ready? And I'm your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Man, you know something is serious when you get to the part three stage of something. So we got Carol Riley, uh, Quantum McLeod, Ramona Wiggins, Ebony Lowe. Thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. So, part three, man. But let me just take you back to part one. Marcia, thanks for joining. Part one, it's a couple weeks ago. The focus was lifestyles. What kind do you want? Then we also talked about sacrifice. Are you ready to sacrifice? And then the third essential point for that one was honesty. Are you being honest with yourself? So that was the basis of that show. And then we had a call in, and it kind of went back and forth throughout the show. So just the heat up. So then last week we came back with part two, and the essential talking points were how soon do you know when you're dating someone if it's not going to work? Then we also talked about dependency within the relationship. Do you want it? And then number three, do you feel that men try to break women they date, kind of break them down mentally or kind of get them to be submissive to their type of whatever their lifestyle or standards? So, which brings us to this week. Are you relationship ready? Part three. After part one and part two, things are still unclear. Let's try to put the pieces together tonight so people can start making some progress. Yes, maybe or no. Where do you stand? What's your status as far as are you ready? Are you relationship ready? Tiffany, thanks for joining. Muhammad, Ebony Swanson, thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. But before we get to that, so I seen something strolling through, I think, Instagram, and of course we know that the Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union situation with Dwayne Wade's son, his name's Zion, maybe 11, 12 years old. It was a picture, and he had his nails all laced up long. And um, so my question was kind of like, are they overdoing it? Is that doing too much? And it was a lot of back and forth. And to me, the consensus of what people were saying is, don't judge. Who are we to judge? The boy looks happy. Dwayne Wade is, he's doing what he's supposed to as a dad, accepting what it is. Now, let me say this. Of course, as a parent, you're going to love your child regardless. Well, you only can hope you would. But you also have your standards or things that you just don't allow in your household, and you don't care what's going on in the world or what's acceptable or not. That shit just don't go down in your house. So there's no way that you can convince me that a son of mine is going to have, let me get this straight. I don't even like them damn long nails anyway on grown women. I don't see the point of it. Long ass nails. Could you even wipe yourself good? Could you be productive at work? I mean, what is the point of it? It's ridiculous looking to me. So to think that a boy would have that on, nah, man, nah, D Wade, that's not gonna cut it. And it takes me back to I remember when I was first got out of college, and I worked for this program. I was a runaway program social worker, and it was this young boy. And back in those days, if the nails and stuff would have been popular and the crop tops, he probably would have wore it. But the issue was his father, big dude, raised in the South, kind of had those that old school Southern mentality. He didn't like the way he didn't like the way his son was carrying himself. So the boy ran away. So my job was to make sure that he had a safe place to go. So they used to have like what we had called host families that they kind of took in kids that were youth that ran away. So I got them there, would have to transport them back and forth to school. Then one day we had a family meeting. Now, mind you, I'm about 23. I ain't had no children, social worker. So the father, like, yo, this can't go down in my house. And then the boy, he came through sashaying, like had a trench coat on, looked like he was naked underneath. And he's like, this is the stuff I'm talking about. I'm going to end up killing this boy in here. And the mother was kind of like passive, kind of like, how moms are, it's a different level of nurturing. Oh, that's your baby. So sometimes the moms, would take the child side. So I think she was kind of torn between. And for me, I had to be politically correct in the situation because I was definitely agreeing with the dad, sort of like, nah, I mean, you got to respect your parents' values. But I think now more days people kind of succumb to say, oh, wait a minute, we got to switch it up. Everything, we're 40 and 50 years old, everything that we've done throughout our life, now we have to change it up because our child has differences. So we need to let them become who they are. Again, not on my watch, not in my household, won't be going down. Like I said, even if it was an 11-year-old girl, she's not gonna have no long nails like that. She ain't gonna be showing her stomach. It's unacceptable to me. All right, that's my rant. That is my rant. I'm moving on. I'm sure Herbert is gonna come in and he's gonna have his take on that situation, but I just don't like the way it's going. And it's other cultural stuff that people got into about trying to kind of emasculate men and our manhood by, you know, by accepting society, accepting these type of behaviors. So we'll go a little deeper into that. Ebony Low, hello, Zilla, thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. So, Herb, man, what's your take, man?
To be or not to be, that is the question. For my complete take, we will have to tune into another show. That is something I'm not going to touch right now, as I do believe it has some value, but not the way that everyone is looking at it. So I'll address that probably in about a week or two in its entirety.
Well, so we know, the relationship. Are you relationship ready? Part one, then part two. So now, after last week, it was still some things that were unclear. The ladies had questions, about the dating process. We talked about the communication, and they were talking about, being guarded and, not trusting, and kind of going into a dating situation, not being themselves, being closed and off and guarded. So I don't know how that's going to work in a relationship where you have, say, for the guy, he's good, he's open, he's sharing, he's content. Then you got somebody and you could just read their body language that they're uncomfortable, and like this ain't going nowhere fast. So what's your whole build up to this round three?
Well, we're going to give women some direction and hopefully a lot of clarity to those particular questions. In my endeavor to assist people, I always do my due diligence when it comes to these issues. So one of the articles that I stumbled on was an article written in 2018, August 10th, by Kansas Jalili. And it says, if these 12 common dating problems are familiar to you, you are not alone. She starts off saying, is it hard to meet someone you're actually excited about? Another question she asks, which you just mentioned, was letting your guard down can be challenging. Placing trust in a new person can be exhausting. Finding someone who wants the same thing as you feels impossible at times. I'm just reading here. Sometimes it feels just wanting the relationship isn't enough. Getting strung along is the worst feeling ever. Entering your first real relationship is intimidating.
Shit ain't going. This ain't going nowhere fast. So, what's your hope?
It's a hard time to someone whose values align with yours completely. Let's start with letting your guard down can be challenging. Because I'm afraid to let my guard down. I'm afraid someone will actually like me. There was a comment last week in the chat that her business is her business and is not anyone else's business. On the surface, that may actually be true, but the question becomes, when does it become somebody else's business? And I think people who have been burned before, particularly women, are guarded when it comes to such things, and that's the incorrect way to operate, because that could lead into you being strung along. If a guy senses that you're not being genuine, he's going to do the same thing you are going to do, and vice versa. You know, it's just not. This is just not exclusive to women. It's applicable to both genders. So if you're not going to lead with being truthful or trustworthy, people sense that. They pick up on that. They look at your body language. They listen to your tone, and more importantly, they listen to what you don't say. And that was one of the things I asked last week when asking questions, or last week or the week prior, I believe, when asking questions about your mate. Sometimes what a person doesn't say gives you more information about them as opposed to what they say. Like asking them about what their previous mate or mates would say about them is a bad quality. Most people never want to paint themselves in a bad light. And you have to ask yourself, if every relationship you have ever been in, that the other person was a problem, then by default, you're saying you're perfect. And see, nobody ever looks at those situations in the way they talk in those terms. One of the things that allows you to do is to self-correct. And what that does to another individual is it disarms them. What I mean by disarmament is this. If an individual asks you a question and you accept responsibility for the role that you played in the dissolution of a relationship, that person will say, okay, you know what? At least I know this person can self-identify the issues that they have, and maybe they're willing to correct it. So just keep that in mind as I keep going down there. Another thing that she spoke about was it's hard meeting someone you're actually excited about. Which leads to the question, where do you go to meet people? Your social media is ubiquitous, but there's nothing like going out to an actual event, putting on a nice dress, some perfume, getting your makeup on, getting your makeup done, getting your hair done, and walking into a venue where there's something there that you like to do. Because if you're at a place where you like to do something, then automatically your level of interest in everything that happens in that event picks up. Let
me jump in and does that really happen, or does that happen only on like Lifetime movies or something? Because to me, it seems like from research I've read, most people, sad to say, they may meet people at work, at their job, or it may be someone from their past that resurfaced back into their world. I mean, I think in this day and age, men and women, if you go somewhere that you enjoy and that you like to do, because of the issue of people being guarded, I wonder how those interactions going to come off, that two people maybe are making eye contact, maybe someone, because some women, and guys too, but I'm going to focus on the women, that they're not even approachable. Like, you walk up and you say something, they already rolling their eyes like, what the hell does he want? And why is he talking to me? And stuff like that. So those are things you have to kind of work through. And I just wonder, like, does that really even exist or happen often in this day and age?
The answer, despite the information that you came across, the answer to that is yes, and here's why. People you meet at work generally are there for a few reasons. One, obviously, is to collect a paycheck. Two, particularly when you get into the corporate world, is they're there because they genuinely like doing that work. So, you go out to happy hour, you find a bunch of other professionals who are, they're there after their long day. You sit there and you strike up a question about what it is that you do. And you say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Or they say, hey, you do not have a friend that does this. Maybe y'all should get together. It's those commonalities that bring us together at certain locations that foster relationships. So automatically when you meet in those situations, you're unguarded. Because you're not there to pick up anyone. You're not there to be anything other than sociable. So when you're in the place where you go to be sociable, the last thing you're thinking about is actively dating. Case in point, if you go to let's say you go to a sporting event, everybody in that stadium or in that venue is there for one reason only. That's to partake in that sport. Everything else that comes along with that is a bonus. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a sporting event, sat to the person next to me, and we've had a great dialogue, whether it's male or female, the person behind me or the person in front of me. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're starting to see more females actually attend sporting events. I know.
You know about to say something about that. You know I am. You know I am. You know it's coming.
I just recently went to a Bills game, and it was like every other person there was a female. Now, if I wanted to, I could have struck up conversations with them, but for me, it was, I wasn't necessarily there for that. But the opportunity always exists for a male or female to actually say, hey, you know what? That guy's not bad looking, or she's not bad looking. You know what? Let me start up a conversation and see what else can come of this. So it's always in how you go about doing things.
Now, and I understand your point that amongst watching a good game and everybody's excited and people high fiving and people talking, sharing their sports knowledge. I can see where it happens at. And I'm going to get to Marcia. She wrote something. But to me, you said there's a lot of women at sporting events, and you said that the main reason is genuinely is because they're there to partake and watch this sports team. It's a lot of women, I think, not saying all, because I know y'all big on that. If you say one thing, oh, not somebody will type in here, not everyone, that kid comeback. That's a kid comeback. But there's a lot of women, you see them now, they all of a sudden now, you grew up with them, you know them, their asses couldn't walk and chew gum or do anything sports related or had no concept, but all of a sudden now they're big into sports. I think some of them is using it to try to catch, like, well, that's one thing I know. If I act like I like a little sports, then I can have them over, or maybe we could go to the games together. Even like as far as boxing, I never seen so many people like, oh, so many women, who got the boxing fight tonight? Who got the fight? Before, it used to be, of course, as Floyd say, his stuff is not a match, it's an event. He has events. So everybody knows, okay, a fight party, Mayweather fight party, because it's the spectacle. And people know him, Pacquiao. But when you start talking about Errol Spence and you got women like, oh man, Who got the fight tonight? Something don't seem right about that. Something don't seem right about it. Because you got to be a true fight fan to know some of these fighters. And something don't seem right unless they grew up in the game around their father or grandfather. Because I know me, I got into boxing because of my father and my grandfather. They was watching boxing, so I would watch it with them as a youngster. But I don't know. Something I guess, and some men could be a jackass and question their level or what you know about this team. Name 5 players on this team. Well, then that's when you'll get. Well, I really don't know anybody. I just like their helmets or their color, or I lived in that state or I visited that state before, so that's why that's my team. Then you know it's bogus. Somebody challenge that. Somebody please challenge that. Make me feel that I'm wrong about this.
No, you're not. It's the old damsel in distress routine, and to that point, it's similar to people going to, let's say, an art exhibit where a person doesn't know the difference between an impressionist painter, an abstract painter, or somebody who does sculpting, or somebody who, I mean, pick an art form. So, I mean, that happens across the board. Nobody's ever accused women of not being calculated. Let's put that on the table. So, absolutely. But, you know, if it wasn't for the sports, they wouldn't be there. Now, the ancillary goal for some, and I agree, is to pick up a mate. The same reason why you see some people attend gala. You see a single female attend the gala more often than not. She's probably there for support mate. Because very seldomly do women attend those functions by themselves because that's not their primary interest. Just like, I mean, take political fundraisers. Now, the reason why I use political fundraisers is this. In politics, you have a lot of people gathering, and the one issue that they say they are there for is to support that candidate. Depending on what that candidate's platform is, that could be everything from LGBTQ rights to the abolition of the Second Amendment to health care for the elderly to, I mean, you pick a topic. Particularly if that individual is running for a county or state position. The bigger the position, the more people you'll see gather. And that presents an opportunity in and of itself. This is why, and you're going to hear me mention his name often, this is why Kevin Samuel says, in order for you to play in the game, you have to get out there. Nobody ever wins in life by sitting on the couch. Case in point, it's been on my bucket list probably for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I wanted to be able to take up ballroom dance. I wanted to be able to learn, not take up ballroom dancing, soca, all those, you know, forms of dancing that they consider, the classic. So just this Sunday, I enrolled in a swing dancing course. Hey, I like I said, man, I'm getting out there because who else is going to be there? People that are interested in dancing. Now, I don't know what's going to happen outside of me learning how to dance a different way. But just think about it. You go to some place that nobody knows you, and all of a sudden they put on swing music, and you see a female out there doing her thing. You say, you know what? Let me go down here and dance with this female. All of a sudden now, something that you took up just because you wanted to learn how to do something has become a way for you to meet another individual.
I get it, and it's a clever move. It's a clever move, and we're gonna get back to that. I want to read what Marcia said. She said, communication is the key to all relationships. But what I won't do is to always be the one who constantly is calling a man who truly doesn't care enough to return my phone calls, regardless how busy we are. Let's be realistic. We make time for the things and people who we are interested or make a priority. I will never give a man that impression. I am, I'm, I am that. I'm not that thirsty for any man's attention. Okay, we're gonna get it. We're gonna tackle that one too. But and I want to go back to that point, Herbert, what you said, and I'm gonna tell you how that works too. When I was in college, but prior to that, I think it was one point I got sick and I was home. And back in them days, you might only had one quality good TV. And I was home, and I think my mother was watching the soap operas, so I got stuck watching that. And I think I started watching All My Children. And then when I got to college, I still kept watching it. When Natalie was in the well and Janet from Another Planet. So I was always into that. And the girls, would always, David, so what's going on in All My Children? And to be honest, some of my classes I would set up around that. And so I'd be in the lounge just chilling, watching All My Children. Then all of a sudden, you see these other dudes because they knew, like, damn, why is he getting all this conversation? Why do they want to go hang out with him in the lounge to watch All My Children? Then all of a sudden you seen their asses try to do it. But they wasn't genuine. It wasn't real. They had no knowledge. They didn't know what was going on. So I do understand, hey, you get the swing dancing and you become that Danny Terrio type while you there. I'm sure you go meet several people. So it's a clever move. Oh, shout out to my cousin Tita. Thanks for joining. What's up, family? I know Dietrich came on, Chris Shine, couple Donna Lewis. Thanks for joining me and Herb in the Counselor's Corner tonight. Now, Herb, do you want to tackle Marcia's point?
Yes, and I think it's a valid point, but I think the way she needs to look at it is in this manner. What problem do you have with letting another individual know that you need them? And that's a question that you have to answer within yourself. Because I think we look at certainly nowadays with the advent of social media, everybody's so quick to put their business and their feelings on social media because it's raw and immediate and the feedback is instant. We don't take the time to sit down and think things through. And more so women, because women want that immediate gratification. If they don't get that immediate gratification, they feel unfulfilled. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want from an individual, and are you going to be upfront with that individual? Are you going to tell that individual, no matter who he is or who she is, that this is what I'm looking for? And if you, the individual, does not, and I repeat, does not set the parameters for what it is that you want out of the relationship, then you're not going to get what you want. You don't go to a restaurant, sit down on the menu, server comes over, takes your order, and the first thing you ask the server is, well, what do you recommend? Because that's what the server's going to recommend. What the server likes, or what the server's told to push. So you sit down, you take the server's recommendation, the server brings the item to you, you sit down, you start eating it, and you don't like it. Well, who's the fault? You fault the server. Well, the server told me this, but ultimately it's your decision. You sat down, you made the decision to listen to the server's recommendation, and you didn't put yourself first. So if you're not going to put yourself first and your wants and your desires, how do you expect somebody else to put you there in that proper position?
Well, let me some just resonated in my head. And I know the vantage point that you're coming from, that you're saying that that you got to put it out there what you want. But don't you think in certain situations that people put stuff out there. I think it has to be calculated, like the moves you make. It's like, and that's why most people are playing checkers. Then you have some people playing chess. So it has to be calculated moves. And I don't know if you want to, first couple of days you want to be talking. Well, I want to put on the table. Yeah, eventually I want to be married, and you talking all this stuff. I just sometimes I think you're supposed to just again. I said it before. The past few episodes, just have fun. Just have the ability to laugh, to have that free flowing conversation. And I know they say dating is an interview, but you have to find a way to be creative to get those questions out. Uh, if you think that, you're just going to sit there, arms folded, and say, okay, I'm here. I want to be married in the next 3 years. Where do you stand as far as that? I don't know how many guys is going to really be open to that method of handling things. I think I said, oh, Chrissy Pooh, thanks for joining. My man Tommy Evans, thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. So that was my take on that. Like sometimes putting everything you want out there, but it's not calculated.
Well, to that, it doesn't have to be, but if that's how an individual is going to approach it, then by all means, do that. But the thing you have to guard against is it being rehearsed. You don't want to, even if you have certain goals that you're looking to have met, you don't want to be robotic in your response and in your speech. Simply put, look at it, and like you said, it's a job interview. Because if you're looking to be married, then you're essentially applying to be somebody's right hand person. And I'm going to stick specifically to women. You're looking to be that husband's secretary. You might need to be his therapist. Hey, you might need to be his cut man. And if you're not ready to be any one of those things, then check out of the process now. Because he is going to rely upon you for those things. You have a lot of women, and I'll mention the name again. Kevin Samuels talks about this extensively. And if you haven't searched him on YouTube, please do. Particularly if you're a female, because right now he's dealing with females, particularly who want what they call masters of the universe. And masters of the universe are men who make about $150,000 to $60,000 a year or better. He talks about women who are essentially past the prime ages of dating. What he defines as that is anybody who's above the age of 25. So 26 on up, and he has benchmarks in terms of age that females hit before what they look for has to change, because let's face it, dating now more so than ever is the biggest competition on the planet.
Now, hold on, I gotta jump in. I hate to be rude. I gotta jump in. So, because I know some of these women like, what the hell did he just say? That once you get 26, that's past the age of dating. And I know, Aline speaks on that. I think Raheem is on here. They kind of speak, and I know, I think it's called something like the sexual market value of women, and you might have to get into that. Let me give a couple shout outs. Shout out to my man Big Spot, Twan Giles for joining, and Nicole Isom. Hey Nikki, how you doing? Grace Glover, thanks for joining. Mom Dukes, Charles Searcy, Carisha's boss, Seaball, thanks for joining me tonight in the Counselor's Corner. So that, ladies, y'all can call in 605-313-5375. I'll type it in because, damn, that was deep. like 26, that your dating days, I don't know. I don't know how y'all feel about that one. But go ahead, Herb.
All right. Well, let's address the sexual market value first. The sexual market value is looked at in terms of you being able to have healthy children. And we all know that, without a doubt, women's most productive age in terms of delivering healthy, viable children is between the ages, I think it's 16 to 25. Now, that doesn't say that women can't deliver healthy, viable children beyond those ages. I'll repeat that. That does not mean that women beyond those ages cannot birth healthy, viable children. But for the average rank and file female, once you start to hit your mid to late 20s, you start to enter into high-risk pregnancy category, especially once you hit your 30s. We're not even going to talk about your late 30s into your 40s because that's definitely high risk. So if you're looking at dealing with a masters of the universe, we're not talking about men who earn, $60,000 or less, because those men tend to not have the aspirations that masters of the universe men do. Masters of the universe men are looking to run companies, be on boards, be managing partners if they're lawyers, run for political office, things of that nature. So when I mention that, that's what I'm specifically talking about in terms of masters of the universe men. Now, I'll bring it back down for the common man. The common man also might be looking to have children. He also might be looking to replicate himself in you. So if you are unwilling to, A, play a traditional role because you're quote unquote an independent woman, then you have to ask yourself, what is it that you're willing to do? Because you'll say, well, I offer more than that. Well, to a man, if you offer more than that, and he doesn't require that, then what you're offering isn't needed. You can say you have all the degrees in the world, all the money management skills in the world, all this, all that. But if you can't help him, then you're a hindrance. As awful as that sounds, some things in the dating world are not going to change unless you want to be the breadwinner. So if you want to be in that subservient position where you're making more money than your husband, you call all the shots, he stays home, he takes the kids to activities, he goes to the PTA meeting, he cooks, he cleans, he does the laundry, then by all means, you can have that. But understand, you don't get to step out of that role because you're tired. You don't get to step out of that role because you're frustrated. You don't get to step out of that role because you're pregnant. And I think this is what a lot of women don't take into consideration when they talk about they want to be the breadwinner. Because if you ask a man who's a breadwinner, he doesn't get to choose. Once he accepts that role, he's there. And there's no backing out. Mortgage got to be paid. Food's got to be put on the table. Other bills have to be paid. So if there's a man that's laying concrete or is doing masonry work, if it's 98 degrees, 88% relative humidity, he's got to go lay them bricks. No. If it's 15 degrees outside, wind chill is a negative 18, you got to go lay them bricks. You don't get to step out of that role. And I think women have to understand that it's not a buffet. You don't get to pull your chair up and say, well, I want this, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't like the way that looks, I don't like. You have to get in. It's not a spectator sport. You have to sit down and say, okay, what is it that I want?
Now one of the things,
Important.
one of the things I wanted to, to go back when you were talking about the sexual market value, and I forgot this guy. I kind of read bits and pieces of books, and I can't think of the author's name, but he talked about the the sexual market value. But he also said this. He said many guys don't start coming into their own, as far as confident wise, until they probably hit maybe like their late 30s or 40s. So if you think about it, is that why those guys seek younger women? Because they're looking for, you know, women that possibly can reproduce or without complications, but also I wish it's on my bookshelf. I wish I knew the name of the guy, the author who said it, but he was saying that women, some of them look their best in their 20s. That's when they're at their highest peak, and that's when they're the most sexiest. Now, granted, if you look at stuff in this day and age, some of the older women, some of them looking real good. They maintain it, handling their business, and they look at the younger generation like they look tired, they look old, you know, and, in some of the communities, they're popping pills, drinking Hennessy 3, 4, 5 times a week and all day long. Yeah, those ones is uh, uh, I'm gonna say it anyway because I am the controversial counsel. They look like trash. Some of those look like trash. I don't think that's with those guys that's you know into their own. Their confidence level is at all time high. They're not chasing those type of women. So I just wanted to add that to it.
No, you're correct. And to that point, like you said, most men don't start, particularly if they got a slow start. Let's just say, we take a person that finished their degree, but they didn't land the ideal job that they want out of college. So they're struggling, they're trying to find their niche, they're trying to find out where they can fit in. And finally they get that break and they're about 29, 30. So they're gonna spend the first 3 to 5 years just getting themselves regimented to the point where they can stand up and be the man that they envision themselves to be, not anyone else. Because it's like Dr. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Self-actualization is the top goal. So once that man hits that top goal, it's like he said, he tends to be in his 30s, in his mid-30s. He's not looking for a woman his age. He's looking for someone younger who, A, doesn't come with all the baggage. And let's face it, the more people we date, particularly women, the more baggage you have. He's looking for someone that's younger, looking for someone that he can potentially mold into his image because he doesn't have to deal with her attitude. And that's a difficult pill for many women to swallow. But the first thing they'll say is, I don't have an attitude.
What I want to ask, what I want to ask her right quick, and people throw that phrase out there. What would people consider baggage? Because when you think about it, some people use baggage as like children, like that's baggage. That's kind of harsh. Baggage.
Reality is harsh. Life is harsh. Dating is going to be the most harshest thing that people do on this planet. More so than getting a job. And I'm going to follow that up with reading Marcia's comment. She says, personally, I have spoken to this person in a very polite way, but somehow I don't think he takes me seriously. So I'm at that point where I won't go back and forth with him. I'm just done. I won't allow him to put me on the shelf and be there when he decides to get around to calling me. Really? It doesn't take someone 2 to 3 weeks to return the phone call. So I decided to be done with him. Let me go back and pick out the second sentence in her first paragraph. She says, I have spoken to this person in a very polite way, but somehow I don't think he takes me seriously. You have to ask yourself, why isn't it that a person doesn't take you seriously who you have communicated that you are serious with? And it goes back to your first statement. You said communication is the key. And I've said this before, and I'll reiterate it. It's never up to the person listening to make sure that they understand you. It's up to the person speaking to make sure they are understood. So when you're talking to an individual and you think that that individual understands you, it's a simple way to find out. Ask that person to repeat back to you what you said. And if it isn't what you communicated, then you have to be clear with your message. And that might, and I stress, I'm not there in the relationship, so I don't know, that might be your problem, is that you haven't been direct enough, and sometimes women have a problem with being direct when it comes to certain things. Whoever just came in, you need to mute your feed, because I'm getting feedback.
Who just came in?
Hey, what's going on, Carissa?
Hey, what's going on? It's C-Ball.
What's going on, man?
Follow the floor.
What's going on? What's up, Dave?
What's up, man?
I had to get into the conversation.
I heard what you.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish. Go ahead, finish.
Okay. So you have to. So women, when you're speaking with men, you have to be more direct if you don't think he understands what it is that you are saying. And like I said, ask for that feedback. There's nothing wrong with getting that feedback.
Well, another thing when you said dating is harsh. I said it's been 3 weeks, and he goes 3 weeks without calling back. I think that's remember we said 55% of it is that the nonverbal type stuff. I think that's enough said right there. 3 weeks. The hell, he undercover somewhere, or I mean, to me that's clear enough. All right.
That's clear. That's clear enough for me too, Dave. 2 to 3 weeks. If somebody ain't reaching back out, they ain't trying to be bothered.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's what it sounds like to me.
So I know you've been on for a while, C-Ball. Like anything else you want to add to it, or anything that stood out that was said?
Yeah, the part about baggage. The women having kids, that's being baggage. I thought that was kind of harsh too, because because most women have kids, So,
you're correct. 80% of the U.S. population, in terms of female, has at least one child.
So whenever you're getting into a new relationship, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna have baggage. You know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10 men will have baggage too. So that's something you're gonna have to compromise on, as far as women having children.
Well, you say that, but let me paint this picture for you. More often than not, who has primary custody of those children?
Oh, the mother.
Okay,
No question. The mother.
So take myself for instance. I'll be 48 next week. I have no children. Do you honestly think I want to deal with a woman who has children that are in the house?
I mean, you being 48. I mean, can we talk how we want to on here?
Yeah.
Hell no, you ain't gonna want that. Being 48, I'm 48 also. Yeah, we had a point where we had that midlife crisis, what they say. You know what I mean? 50, hitting that midlife. So no, we don't want a woman with a bunch of kids. You know what I mean? Especially no baby kids. But I feel like if I can meet a woman and she got her shit together and her kids ain't running around breaking shit and well behaved, well mannered, I probably could deal with that. You know what I mean? But is that something I'm looking for? Probably not.
And that leads. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
And I was going to say that's the thing that a lot of women aren't told when they are younger, because they are being fed this message that they can have it all. They can go out and have children. They can make a mistake, and they're still going to be treated and respected as if they don't have that. And and I'll put this in a manner that everybody can understand. Take your dream car, no matter what it is, or take your dream vacation, or take whatever is your dream house. And just imagine walking into that house or that car or whatever it is and finding somebody else's luggage there. How is that going to make you feel?
Yeah.
You're not going to be too happy.
Right. I understand. Definitely not.
Definitely. And that's what people have to understand. So baggage doesn't necessarily have to be children. Baggage is anything that keeps you from operating at your optimal. Right. So if you have some hang-ups with your classmates or some issues that are unresolved from your childhood, and Kevin Samuel says this, he says, go get a therapist. Get those things sorted out so when it's your turn to stand in the breach, that you can be that person that you need to be, not want to be, but that you need to be. Because if you are at your best and you shining like the sun, and you step on stage and they're just blown away by your aura, they can't help but to be attracted to you, no matter if you're their type or not. And this is what I mean by getting out there. I've encountered a lot of people that aren't my type, but I enjoy their company. And this is what it becomes. It's like that whole Sunday dinner. You don't have to like everybody that you sit down to Sunday dinner with. You don't like everybody that might come over for Thanksgiving. But it's a festival. It's a festive time.
Now let me piggyback. Let me piggyback on that. And in that situation, Herb, maybe if you're speaking on that, you hanging out with these people, and it's not, the financial burden is not on you, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, hang out, and it's like Dutch, whatever. But if you hang out with several people that like, this ain't going nowhere, that shit can get kind of costly for the average person. So I think people shy away from that too.
And this is how you can deal with that. Right. Go to events or functions that cost you very little. It costs you nothing to go to a museum. It costs you nothing to go to a high school basketball game. Very little to go to a high school football game.
We all agree that it all depends on the caliber of women you're trying to date too. As far as like taking a woman to a museum.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Well, yes and no. And this is what I mean by the whole put yourself out there. If you're going to an event without anybody, then you don't have to worry about any expense that you incur, because you already know what your budget is. So if you go to an event where you happen to meet a female and y'all just partaking in each other's company, and you're talking about this, you're talking about that right then and of itself is going to let you know what that person values. So if you're at a venue where you're not spending money, guess what? You both already on the same page in that term. It's when you pick up a female and you have an expectation information of her that you haven't communicated to her, then how is she supposed to know? You pick the female up and you take her to the chop house. You look at the menu, she goes surf and turf. You're like, that's $35. And you haven't even ordered. And I'm proponent of it. You haven't vetted that female properly.
Somebody need to turn their volume down.
And I've vet women. That's why I don't have those problems.
You said turn the volume down, David?
Yeah, I don't know if it's you. It might be Marcia. Marcia's on here. Marcia, so you is something you want to add to it? Marcia.
Hello?
Yeah. Is it something you want to add to this discussion? I know you had. I don't know if you're coming in to kind of talk about that one guy, or is something else you want to move forward with?
Yeah, I want to talk about baggage. Herb had mentioned women have baggage, but men have baggage too. And what I mean about baggage in general is people have a tendency unconsciously to bring failed relationship issues or yada yada into a new relationship. And my whole thing is this, that I find for most men, well, I would say some men, I don't know if this holds true or not, but most men that I have met had been in previous relationships. And for whatever reasons, once they become hurt by a woman, they have a hard time in recovering from that, to the point that it blocks them from meeting a good woman. Mm-hmm. And how does a good woman get around that obstacle when they're interested in this guy?
I have 2 words for you. You don't. Move on.
Well, I guess
it's the old adage of putting good wine into a bad cistern. Why waste your time to somebody that's emotionally unavailable?
Well, sometimes you just got to feed somebody like that with a wooden spoon from a distance. Like I wouldn't put all the effort into it. You might have to fall back, or and kind of see where he's at. If you know that every time you reach out, he got that attitude, or y'all get together and he's complaining about his child's mother or what happened to him in the past, hey, well, he's telling you he's really not relationship ready. He's just he hanging out, and he may have a certain goal he's trying to accomplish.
Because he definitely got trust issues if he's still dwelling on his past relationship. That's going to take some time. I would say a good woman should be able to convince him, down the road that she's true, that she's there for him. Because that's going to be hard. If the brother got trust issues from his past, that takes a while for someone to get over,
Yeah, that's true.
So I would definitely say, take your time with that brother and just be there for him, because that's a tough situation.
And I was saying, if nothing else, but let him know that you're a friend. I mean, because I always think that starting off being friends, it helps build the foundation.
No question. I definitely agree.
Let me jump back to something that you mentioned earlier, Carissa. And this is one of the things I found out I came across in my research. And one of the things, this was one of the points that the individual spoke about in another article. They said dating is too expensive and time-consuming. Here are 2 conflicting yet fascinating data points. The average date in the U.S. costs $150 per person. 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. They go on and say, you see the issue? And the individual says, this topic first came to the radar about 3 years ago when they began to wonder why they received so many requests from men asking for inexpensive date ideas. Many of these men continue to further tell me that they often only went out on 1 or 2 dates per month. Not out of this interest because of lack of funding. When they researched the topic further, they found over half the females clients passed on a date because of either no money or time. The average duration of a date from start to finish is 2.5 hours, when most people spend 30 minutes to an hour just to prepare to travel to and from a date location. In total, a date could eat up 3.5 hours of your day. This is too long. If it's someone who wants to date frequently, only a handful of dates of this duration would be equivalent to a full-time job. So the solution, they said, was all couples should commit to a cap of $50 total per date for the first several dates. Although the first date shouldn't be anything close to 3.5 hours. 30 minutes is more than enough time for the first meetup.
That's why it probably should be during lunchtime. That's why it should be a lunch date.
You mentioned, David, at the different date. You said lunch is the ideal time for a date because you don't have all day to sit there and do this or that. You get in, lay some basic groundwork, see if you like this individual enough to go on another date with them, and then you do that. And this is what I mean by going to places where it doesn't cost anything. Museums, parks, any place where people gather.
But I go. I'm to cut you off, Herb. I just go back to it's about the caliber of woman you're dating. Like me, for instance, right now, it ain't no woman I'm talking to that's going to go to no museum. I'm sorry. I know that might seem bad, but they're not. They want to go to a concert. They want to go out to a club, to a comedy club. You know, I know what you mean. Like, even the statistics you was just throwing out, her, that shit drove me crazy. Like, I just got $175, and you know, like all that is fine, but I'm talking from experience, man. You know what I mean? Like, well, let me. Hold on. I can honestly say I'm 48 years old, man. I'm not in a relationship right now, so all my relationships have failed because I'm single right now. Right? I thought I knew. I thought I knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? But relationships is hard.
I have a question about that, and you said spending money. Okay, suppose you meet a nice lady, and to me, okay, when I meet a guy, I'm not trying to break his pockets. I have to be honest. I want to get to know that person. So initially, for me, in meeting him, we really don't have to do the restaurants, the movies, yada yada. That one-on-one time, just casually getting to know someone, should be priceless. I'm even the type of woman that, you know, hey, if my guy's running shit on his money, hey, I don't mind ain't going Dutch.
What about you making him dinner? What about you making him dinner, Marcia?
Say that one.
Marcia, let me respond to Carissa's first, and then I'll address your second one. Carissa, how often do you bring Sam to the beach?
How often do I bring Sam to the beach? Not often.
So don't worry about what she wants to do. If she wants to do it,
her. Hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
If she wants to do it, you know what the response is? Pay for it.
Right. But I'm just not that type of guy.
But you have to be. It's not what you want to do. It's what you have to do. You see, let me put it to you like this. You have to weed out what you don't want. And once you start to weed out what you don't want, guess what you're going to get? What you want that. You're going to get what you want. And this is what I mean by the vetting process. If you're willing to entertain any female that comes to your door, then you're going to get anything. See, me, I'm not willing to do that. 90% of the females that I see, we're not even talking to. 90% of the females I see, I write off. They can't even approach me. It's an elitist mindset that I conduct my personal life in that manner so I don't have to deal with the nonsense. And that's how you have to look at it.
Let me add to that.
Look at it like that.
Let me add a piece to that.
Right.
And one of the things is, Seaball, when you said, you know, you're not that type of guy, and I understand that, and you'll find out with many, see, some of these women have attitudes that they want you to pay that 150, 175, and then they want you to plan everything. And I'll tell somebody from the beginning, I don't do all that. I plan and coordinate at my job. You're going to have to meet me halfway. If you think that some guys is going to have everything down, scripted from this time to that time, and they have to plan and do all that stuff, I think some of you that women, that's where you're falling short at, because some guys just don't have that time to do. They want you to kind of work with them on that, and you have to be willing to do that.
And they ain't built like that. And they just ain't built like that. You know what I mean? Some men just ain't built like that. Like some women have to take the lead, but most women want the man to take the lead. That's what it seems like to me. You know, most women want the man to take it. They want the man to set the date, to make the plan. You know, and society, that's just the picture that America paints, man. That the man's supposed to run shit. You know, the old saying, you gotta pay the, what's the saying? You gotta pay the cost to be the boss. You gotta pay the cost to be the boss.
But
so like that's what society paints the picture for men, is to, you know, to be the boss. You gotta pay the cost.
But at the same time,
so let me ask you this then. If that is what a woman believes, then it goes back to what I said. What kind of woman are you allowing to approach you?
Right. I mean, you can have a corporate woman who's making 6 figures a year, or you can have a woman on Section 8.
Correct. And that's precisely my point with why I say 90% of the females that I see, at least in my general area, they can't approach me because they're just not on my level.
And that's a huge part too. It's like what we working with, what's our surroundings. You know what I mean? That has a big part to do with it too. You know, that's probably 90% of the women you shooting down because they trash. You know what I mean? So, I mean, like you said, you should be able to pick and choose the right woman that you want. You know what I mean?
And what that does is this. First of all, women are going to outright reject that because they're going to think them in and of themselves is enough. They think all they have to do is bring themselves to the table and they should qualify for a good man because they have a vagina and that's what men want. Newsflash. Right. Most men don't give a damn about sex if you're going to make their life miserable. This is what high-end men do. Now, I'm not a high-end man, but I do live a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. And I'm moving, as I get older, I move up in pay. So the one thing I refuse to deal with is the female who has excessive issues, children that I consider minor children, or anything that's going to burden me unnecessarily. When I say unnecessarily, I mean anything I have to do for a kid that I'm not doing for myself. Yes, I'm not going to pick up your kid from practice. I'm not going to buy you and your kid nothing to eat.
Wait, Herb, you said this is the thing you're not going to do?
He said he's not going to buy them nothing to eat.
I'm not picking up nobody. If it's not my niece and nephew, I'm not picking nobody up from practice.
In the beginning of the relationship, this is like this is what you're giving off to the woman? Like you ain't doing none of that.
I ain't doing none of that. She can't even ask.
That's starting the relationship all fucked up right there.
No. This is setting your boundaries. And what happens with a lot of men,
if you got a car and you trying to kick it to this woman, and you telling her you don't want to pick up her child, I just can't relate to that one, Herb. Like,
no, and you can't. And ask yourself, Why do I have the issue with attracting a quality caliber of woman? That's because your standard aren't where they need to be to attract that quality type of woman. Think about it. If you go to work, there are certain things that they are going to accept, and there are certain things that they are not going to accept. By
If you
you
keep attracting the same thing, you're probably that same thing you don't want to attract.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Yeah, well, first and foremost, let me put this out there. I don't have any kids.
Who was that who just came
I don't
in?
have to worry about that.
Who was that who just came
I'm
in?
not dealing with people that have minor children. I'm just putting it out there.
Her, and not to cut you off. Not to cut you off.
I wasn't talking about children. I was talking about if you attract drama, you probably got drama yourself. We attract the energy that we are. So if you keep running into bullshit females, there's probably something about you that's not what it needs to be for you to reach your full potential.
Who's this speaking?
And let me elaborate on this. You saying you don't have no kids, right?
Correct.
So that's kind of like, so you definitely ain't gonna feel a person who do have kids.
We're not even getting together. We're not getting together beyond high.
You said you're not getting together.
Correct.
So you kind of limiting your pool. You're limiting your pool of women.
No. I'm opening my pool to eligible women, and that's how I look at it. See, this is the mindset that a lot of men have, and it keeps them from the blessing. How many cars do you? Let's look at it like this, guys, and I'm gonna focus on the guys for a minute. When you go buy a car, what are you looking for? Are you looking for any other thing that runs, that gets you to point A to point B, or are you looking for the car that has the sunroof, the nice system, the leather seat, the heated seat, all the tripped up things? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you may buy a car, like you may buy a car off the lot with all them features, but the minute you drive it off the lot, it immediately depreciates. So how you gonna compare a car to a woman? If you're getting a woman that depreciate off break, you're looking for the wrong female in the first place. That's just my personal opinion. A car is a liability. It's never an asset. The minute you drive it off the lot, it's never worth the money you paid for it. If you finance it, you're just digging further in the hole. So if you're comparing your woman to a car, it's a mindset, and you want to keep getting liabilities instead of assets.
Social media is the motherfucker right now too. Dave,
Yeah, what's up?
you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Like I was just talking. I'm gonna let you talk. I was just talking to somebody about social media. Like when we were coming up, Pussy, right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to talk to a woman. We had to go up to her, say something verbally. Hopefully she give us her number, and then we call her later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's a lost art.
I'm going down to this is why I'm going
that doesn't exist anymore. Social media, now it's 100 to 200 people talking to this woman at the same time, trying to get her number.
Yeah, and they're looking at the presentation.
Trying to impress her.
Real women aren't carried about likes. Real women are not carried about who comments on their picture. Real women don't even respond to that. A real woman, like, but what I'm saying is it depends on the caliber of a woman that you're looking for. Once you're looking for a certain caliber of woman, we're not worried about likes. We're not worried about anything. And earlier he said something about, like, at the end of the day, you find you the right woman, and she won't, like, you're like, well, what she bringing to the table? She'll fucking buy the table. Like, it's nothing. At the end of the day, it is the caliber that you search for that determines the caliber of woman that you get. But if you not 100, if you 60, you want to get a 60 female. If you 100, you want to get a 100 female. That is how it knows. I understand that sometimes we think that we're 100, and it's just not the way it works out. But before, in my life, I would say, yeah, I was on 100. Well, guess what? Life put me through some things.
things, and I figured I wasn't what all I needed to be. But I'm humble. I reassess. I went from there. So I understand, but a lot of guys are looking for something that they're not willing to provide. You go into, I'm not dealing with this, I'm not dealing with that. Like someone else said, you're limiting your pool. On top of limiting your pool, you're being judgmental as if you're asking someone else what they brought to the table, but it's not even your table sometimes.
Who is this? Who is this speaking?
Let me follow that up.
Hold on. I'm trying. Hold on. Who is this speaking? Is this Jamil?
This is Marcy.
Marcy.
That wasn't Marcy. That was this speaking.
Yeah, that wasn't her.
No, that wasn't me. I don't know who that lady was.
So the person who was just speaking previous to Marcy, identify yourself.
It's Jamil, Herb.
Oh, it's Jamil.
Okay.
I thought it was. Okay. Hey, Jamil.
Jamila has hit the nail on the head. Earlier, I said you have to self-evaluate. Now, let me go back to what I said because there seems to be some misunderstanding about what I meant. When I used the car analogy, what I was simply saying is the type of woman I'm looking for is going to be comparable to a car in terms of what she has to offer. I'm not comparing a woman to a car because hold on. You said as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it loses value. Tell me, what value does a woman who has at least one child, a minor child, bring to my life when I don't have any?
Well, I can tell you right now, I have a 17-year-old, which is still considered a minor. What do I bring to the table?
I did not.
What does she bring to the table? What did you say?
I said, what do women, not you? Don't make this applicable to the individual. We're talking about a demographic. We're talking about women. Don't make it applicable to you. See, this is how we get caught up in this stuff. We try to parse this stuff out to make it applicable to us so we feel better. So just talk about women. What does it mean that's a value with a minor child?
Well, first of all, it depends because a woman with a minor child, she will take care of your home better. Like a true mother will take care of your home better than someone without, because the maternal instinct of caring for someone will naturally carry over to that woman's man if she has a child. There are things I would have never done for a dude that a dude had done for them. So I did it for my child, and he was my man at the time, and it carries over. That's the difference. At the end of the day, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, but what it sounds like to me is you dated a lot of the wrong women. But at the same time, yes, but at the same time, if we're keeping it 100, once you say you kept dating the wrong woman, you got to ask yourself, what about yourself kept making you attract the wrong woman? And if you're coming in with, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, you're going to meet a woman that's coming into the situation saying, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. So if y'all are coming in and y'all both closed-minded to a certain extent, it don't matter. Because if you're both coming in with limitations, how can you get unconditional love out of something that started with so many conditions? If there's this condition and that condition, and you're not picking their kids up, at the end of the day, as a woman with a kid, if you love me and you love all of me, my child is part of me. So therefore, I'm not asking you to pay daddy.
No question.
But at the end of the day, I'm not asking you to pay daddy. But if my homegirl can pick my kid up from practice, if you slide in this good shit every night, why can't you pick my kid up from practice? If you're already coming to my house anyway, all thing is, I'm not asking. No, I'm not saying.
Hold on. Yeah, go to y'all neutral corners. Go to y'all neutral corners.
At the end of the day, if you come into the house, don't come empty-handed. I'm not asking for your money. I ain't asking for shit. But if you can't bring my son when you get here, if my son, if part of me is a problem, then you don't deserve none of me.
You just fell into the cardinal sin I said about 10 minutes ago. You didn't listen and you didn't catch it. I said,
don't tell me what I did.
Her calling him a white woman.
Let me lay it out for you.
Her calling him a white woman. That's what
No,
Hello.
I'm gonna lay it out for you.
he was.
I'm gonna lay it out for you. I just said that women fall into the cardinal sin of thinking that their sex is the caveat to keeping a man. I just said that.
No, she wasn't using that.
Well, listen, it sound like it'll be part 4. Damn.
That is just a cherry on top of the icing. What I'm saying is, well, first of all, my name is not Camilla.
You're just not allowed you to finish.
Right. We can't sing. We can't hear.
Yeah, okay.
So I have already made clear that I am not dealing with a female that has minor children. So anything you said after that, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so let me add to that. So I think what Herb's saying, it's never going to even get to that point. Once you say you have a minor child, like that conversation is dead as far as y'all having any romantic involvement. You may hang out or something like that, but it will be no expectations of him.
Yes, but well, and I guess for me, the way I say it and the way that I think differently, if I'm even asking someone to pick my child up, as a mother, I don't let anybody around my child. So it's one of those things. If I'm asking you to pick my child up, it's not off break. You have had to already earn my trust. So if I'm asking you to pick my child up, you have already proven to me that as a man all on his own, that he is worthy. And if you, and with reciprocity, if you've proven to me that you're a man, like my kid is not the first thing I offer. That's the last thing you can get to. So like, fine, play people, oh, I'll pick your kid up. Nah, I'm good. At the end of the day, as a woman, when a woman, depending on the woman, when she's asking you, like if you pick the kid up, if it's one of those, any woman that you're going to be with, you need to be able to be friends first. And as a friend, you should be able to bring in a relationship. If y'all not friends, then forget the whole relationship.
My question is this: why do women depend? I am an independent woman, and I feel like this. I think for some men, women that depend on them starting off as a friend can be a turnoff. My whole thing is this. I agree with her when he said about, no, he wasn't going to bring the kid food or whatever he had stated. Because my feeling is this. Before I met him, I am my child's sole provider. I don't depend on another man, whether we're in a relationship or not, to provide for my children. I think a lot of women get into this thing, oh yeah, they want a man to do this and they want a man to do that. But first, you have to be clear in what you're going to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Now, that thing about picking a young kid up from practice or whatever.
Well, okay, I mean, for me, when he's at a kid, I like for me, I responded as my kid, as a young kid. No, wasn't no man allowed to pick my kid up from nothing. So like for me, independent woman, I understand what you're saying, but that's why I say, if someone is picking my kid up, like to her, I'm guessing that the women he runs into wanted it off of break. But if you're independent and you feel like I feel, it's one of those, you know, once we're asking someone to possibly pick our kid up, we're trusting you with a piece of us. That's not an initial offer. That's what I hear that's what I hear whenever I hear what he's saying. At the end of the day, as the woman that I am, if I'm even allowing you to pick my child up, we are not, like, this isn't no entry level relationship.
Well, I think
like,
let me add to this, Jamil. And I think if you're at that point with a person, that should be just a given. That if y'all working together and you have to work, and like you said, if he's already coming over there, he should, like, baby, I'm gonna pick up Daquan or whoever, and that should be a given. That should be a given. But you have to get to that point.
I mean, that should be given. So earlier when I said about you, like, sliding up in there, and he said, like, I wasn't saying that was the first thing, because as the woman I am now, not just anybody even gets that access, even outside of the kid. Like, I could meet somebody, like, sex is not a off-top given. I know for some women, like that's their cup of tea. But at the same time, when you're talking to a certain caliber of woman, sex ain't on the table off break. At the end of the day, if this is supposed to go somewhere and I'm going to invest in you, because that's what women do, women invest in their man. If it's the wrong man, we just invest. It's just a bad investment. But as a woman, we naturally invest in our man. So if we're asking you to invest back into us, we would only be asking for reciprocity. I can't speak for the women who think the other way. That, like this conversation is asking if someone's relationship ready, and anybody that falls into that category that you described earlier, obviously is not relationship ready.
Somebody need to turn their volume
I don't
down.
knock them. I don't judge. I'm just saying, as far as relationship ready, any woman that's all breaking, oh, I need this, that, the third, and whatever, then she's like, that's codependency. That's not a healthy relationship. Yeah, so she's not ready. But what I'm saying is this is part 3 of, are you ready for a relationship? I feel like David said, at a certain point, there is a given that if you're building together, how can you be building together and like, no, I'm not going to accept your child? At the end of the day, that's 50% me. It don't matter who else helped create it. That is an extension of me. And if you love somebody completely for who they are and they have a child, it's a package deal. It's not like a 1 plus extra. It's all part of the one.
Let me ask you this question. How often are you willing to let me borrow your car?
How what?
How do you own the vehicle?
Yeah.
Herb, was you
Hold on, Carissa. Let me lay it out for you. How often are you willing to let me borrow that car?
Well, as far as willing to borrow it, you can borrow it all the time, but my ex had 3 cars. I didn't have to worry about that. But at the end of the day, when he needed a car to drive, that's what I'm saying. That's that reciprocity. If I, as a woman, am deciding to be with you, then what's mine, I should be willing for it to be ours at the end of the day.
Hold on. There is the magic word, should. Under no pretense did you say you were obligated, and that's the statement that you're making, is that a man is obligated to do for his car. Hold on.
We got to close this out in a minute. We got to close it out.
Here's the way that is you putting words in my mouth. No, but I'm not letting you finish right now because you're putting words in my mouth.
No,
I'm not. You said what I said.
Jamil, Herb.
It was never obligation. It was never obligation. That's all I'm saying. I never expect anything out of anybody. It's not an obligation. Is all I was trying to say. So
you said what?
Listen, we about to have closing comments. Everybody's gonna have their, because this can go on and on and on. So everybody to their neutral corner, and who's on the line now, have your closing thought about the topic or the show briefly, and we about to end it. I'll be the moderator. Marcia, go ahead. Quickly.
Go ahead, Marcia. What was that question?
No, when I was what I said. Oh, about what's he saying? I forgot. Everything else came in. Oh, I think it was about women that are needy of thinking that men need to do certain things for them. Because just like I was telling Jamil, that for me, I'm an independent woman. When I meet a man, okay, my son is an adult. So therefore, it is a little different when you have minor kids. But my thing is this. I personally would not, when I meet a guy, I don't bring my son into the picture until I know it's a solid relationship. I think it does the child or the young adult an injustice for the women to have men in and out of their lives. When you're uncertain, this is going to be a permanent relationship. As far Oh, as far as dating, as far as the women expecting men to have X amount of dollars to spend, I'm a totally different woman because just like I stated, if I'm into a guy and he's financially strapped for whatever reasons, I as a woman don't have a problem in saying, I don't mind going Dutch. Because
Why
I
don't you
feel
just
like
pay
this,
for it
it's not
then?
always
Why
the
don't you just
money
pay
that you
for it?
spend, it's the quality of time that.
But-
Amen.
And I'm not trying to break anyone's pocket because, we can have just a nice time one-on-one in your place or at my place. It doesn't necessarily dictate having to be out in the public. So that's my take on it.
All right. C-Ball, you still on here?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, relationships are hard, obviously.
Yeah, they are.
We are, seem like we have different opinions. But and I'm pretty sure we all been through a few relationships in our lives.
Yeah.
I don't know if any one of us are married, but
I have been married.
But I've been unsuccessful. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm still trying to master this relationship thing. But one thing I think I did figure out is that if I'm not right mentally and financially, whatever relationship I do try to get into, it's probably not going to work.
But my question is this. I don't mean to cut you off. My question is this. Why does the finances of one has have to play a big part in a relationship? I mean, you just the way I'm speaking is like this guy, or you must be a blue collar guy to be accepted by a woman. That's not always true.
Thank you.
I take people at face value. I mean, as long as that guy's employed and can handle his own business, hey, I'm cool with that. You don't have to wine and dine me 24/7. That's me speaking from my point of view.
Right, and I think that's a beautiful thing when a woman speaks like that. But I don't want to be a broke, excuse my language, broke nigga. You know what I mean? Like that just stretches me out. That stretches me out. Just to think that I ain't got no finance. And I just think as a man, you should want to be the breadwinner. You should want to be able to do any and everything at any moment with your woman. And you can't do none of that if you ain't got no bread.
Well, I think that part of the problem is you have to be secure enough as a man to be okay with your wife being the breadwinner, only because, just for an off example, because I was watching Homecoming earlier. If Beyonce fell in love with an everyday dude, it would take a high level of him being confident in himself to accept that she's paid a lot of money for things that don't matter. Like as females, I leave it to a certain caliber of female, like the lady was saying before, I think it was Marcia, it's not about money. And the guys, guys feel confident in their money, and maybe a guy's not where he wants to be financially, and that comes off in his everyday confidence. At the end of the day, but as a woman, if you show us that you have the potential to be the man that we see inside, we can roll with that. It's not about you, because everyone falls, everyone gets knocked down. At the end of the day, if I meet at this, you can meet somebody that has a great job and they lose everything. Women don't, if you're looking for a woman that's looking for a substance in a relationship, she is looking for the man that you are, because money comes and goes. You can have the best investments and the stock market crash, and then you have nothing to offer financially.
It takes a special kind of woman to be at that point. Well, hey, listen. I don't mean to be rude. We can go on and on, but I want to honor your time. I mean, sometimes I let it go in the overtime, but we'll be back next week. Like I said, these conversations, they go twofold. It comes back around, and I don't care how you slice it up, that somehow, some way, it'll go back to this. And as we said, and I always go back to my first professor in the counseling field. He always said relationships or marriage and all that stuff is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, along with parenting. He said those two things are the most difficult. There's no perfect book or no guide or anything. Nobody's no expert. I'm not an expert in this.
Because
That's
every
why.
person is different, and whether it be a child and a mother or people in a relationship, you have to each person has to know themselves, and people have different love languages. With the wrong love languages, there's going to be constant miscommunication. So even if it's not your love language, I have a son. My son is more emotional than I am. I had to learn his love language, and that's my son. I'm not an emotional, that's not my love language. And I think that that's the problem. People look for a certain thing to be the answer or a certain way to be the answer, and that's not
that's not
realistic.
There's no cookie cutter approach to any of it. And we could go on. We could talk about love languages. We could talk about a lot of elements to this. It goes on and on. But at the end of the day, you have to be your best coming into a situation. You have to feel at your best. And as C-Boss, as he said, Jamil. Settle down.
No, I said or come in humble, because everyone is a work in progress.
Yeah. But for some man, it may be like they want to have their money right. And they may have been told or schooled that that's the way it should be. Like my grandfather would say, if you can't call yourself a man if you ain't got no few dollars in your pocket, or you can't get around. He's like, no man wants to wait around for somebody to transport them or whatever. And that was just his thing. That was his thing.
Yeah.
But it depends on how you were brought up and the influences you had in your life on that shapes your kind of mindset.
Well, on top of what you were taught.
So, Herbert, you still on here?
Yes, I am here.
Close it out, and we have to come back next week with because like I said, this could be part 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's never ending, but it's productive. All of this is productive to me. Chaotic but productive.
I'm going to close, and I'm going to leave people with this one phrase. Standards. Either you have them or you don't.
So, and that has a lot to do with it too. Standards. You know what you're willing to accept, and you know what you don't, that you're not going to accept. And if you don't have those, then you'll never be able to kind of shorten your pool of people. Why do you think, like far as college and stuff like that, that's why they came up with the SATs and stuff like that. They had to find a way to weed out certain people. You have certain criterias, like if they don't make this cut, then they're not even in the pool. So, people have standards, what they're willing to accept. Some things are non-negotiable, like absolutely don't want anybody who does this or who does that. So it depends on the individual. All right, great show. Please share the video, and it's a long one. And I think that's the issue too. A lot of times people, they don't understand you can get a lot out of this, but it went on for like an hour and 30 minutes.
I don't care how long it is, as long as it's good.
Yeah, that's for some. But some people, they like it should have to be like 5-10 minutes, and that's their attention span. But
yeah, but those aren't the people you want to cater to. You want to cater to the real people that want the depth, not just the surface.
Yeah, and that's why I let it go on. Go on. All right. I want to thank C-Ball for coming in tonight. Marcia, Jamil, Herbert, of course. Let's do it again. Let's do it again next week with a different topic.
Wait a minute. What about the other gentleman? You said Marcia, Jamil, Herbert. There was another gentleman.
I said C-Ball.
Oh, that's what it was? Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing?
All right. So
yeah, that's an old nickname that we go way back.
Yeah.
I can turn. Yeah.
So with that said, about to sign off, and again, like I said, share the video, and still, I'm gonna probably turn around, throw a watch party. I don't know if I'll be able to stay up for it, but feel free to commentate. The conversation doesn't have to end. This stuff is evolving. It's never ending. Just keep it going. And again, like I said, I want to thank you all for coming in. I appreciate it, and everybody have a productive rest of the week. And I'll get with you next Monday. I'm out. Peace.
All right, guys.
All right.